Are you ready? Stand by.
This podcast is brought to you by Breda USA, Italian shotguns that are the best in the world. And this is a shotgun tech tip from Team Breda. Hey, this is Dave Hartman from the 3 Gun Show, and I'm with Tina Martin-Nims from Team Breda, and we are going to learn about choke selection.
So before you go out to the match, you want to make sure that you have an understanding of how what your chokes are patterned at. So what I like to do is I have my 3 main chokes that I usually use, which is a spreader, an IC, an improved cylinder, and a mod. And I set my targets out at 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30. And it's just like a knockover steel and a flipper. And I test to see what how they perform at those distances with the ammo that I typically use. And so when I go out onto a stage, I already know that at, say, 35 yards, I can use my mod choke and knock it out. And I'll be all ready to go.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's your tech tip from Tina Martin-Nims of Team Breda. Check out Breda's B12i 3-gun ready inertia-driven shotgun at BredaUSA.com. That's BREDA. Hey there, and welcome to the 3 Gun Show. I'm your host, Dave Hartman. If you're new here, our regular Wednesday show is a deep dive into the mindset, training, and techniques of the best practical shooters in the world. What you're listening to now is a Match Recon podcast where we have a shooter run down a set criteria and give you the tools needed to excel when shooting the match that we're covering. I do a lot of these recons myself, and if I didn't shoot the match, I interview one of the amazing people in our community that did. This is the replay of the Recon podcast that supporters of the 3 Gun Show on Patreon got to listen to real time. Patreon is a subscription-based service that allows you, the listener, to support creators like myself on a monthly basis. I can't thank the patrons enough for their support of the 3 Gun Show, which helps me to continue bringing regular, high-quality content to you. If you dig the work that I'm doing on the podcast, on YouTube, on Instagram, etc., consider supporting the show with a few bucks each week at patreon.com/3gunshow. That's Patreon. Show notes, including a written breakdown of all the recon criteria, can be found at 3gunshow.com. Just search for the name of this match. Now enjoy this match recon, and I'll see you on the range. Welcome to the 3 Gun Show, and this is a special Match Recon episode with Special Field Correspondent Josh Tarrant. Josh, how you doing, man?
Doing great, Dave. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. I'm excited to do this Match Recon with you because this was a match that I wasn't able to make this year, so I'm excited to hear how it goes. But before we do that, if you're listening in real time, you're a patron, and this is especially for you. And thank you for supporting the 3 Gun Show. If you're listening to this in the future and you're trying to figure out how to shoot this match, we're happy to help you. And if you'd like to become a supporter of the 3 Gun Show through Patreon, you can do so at patreon.com/3gunshow. That is Patreon. And what that is basically crowdsourcing to fund a creator. And in this case, the 3 Gun Show is the creation. So that is the thing here, and be sure to listen afterwards for a special offer from Armalite. And Josh, man, let's get into it, dude. What match did you shoot?
Sure. So I shot the 2017 Blue Ridge Mountain 3-Gun Championship. It took place at the Rockcastle Shooting Center down in Cave City, Kentucky. It was a point-style match, and the rule set I would call unique. We'll call it the Andy Horner rule set. So he kind of has he has his own flavor that he likes to have at his match.
Right, and it's important to read that rule book.
Very important to read that rule book. It was in practice score, so scores were done the new-fashioned way, not the old-fashioned way, which was nice. This was the 10th year anniversary of the match, and I was told, Andy mentioned that it was the largest Blue Ridge they've ever had, so the attendance was actually pretty high at 252 shooters.
Awesome.
Yep, I think the match fee was about $300, kind of your standard match fee, and the division winners of the match was Tim Yackley. He won TAC Optics and overall. Ryan Muller won open, Aaron Hayes won tack limited, and Jomar Villamore from up in Minnesota won heavy.
Very cool. So some names that we're seeing quite a bit this year in those positions.
Yeah. Tim Yackley's won a lot of matches this season. He's had a heck of a year.
Yeah, he's like seemingly on fire for sure.
Yeah.
And so, Josh, the schedule. This is an on-off schedule, if I remember correctly.
Correct. So you shoot all 3 days: Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Which there's a funny story there.
Okay.
But it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday match, which is very unique. First time I've come across it. But you're pretty much on the range from your start time, which is either 7 or 9:45, 7:30 or 9:45, until either like 3:30, 4 o'clock, or 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. So you're on the range all day for the most part for 3 days.
And how do you feel about on-off, I guess, schedule versus like a half-day format where you shoot all morning and then you have the afternoon off, or you shoot all afternoon and you have the morning off?
Kind of a mixed feeling. So from just a pure schedule perspective, I like half-day format better. I'd rather just go from stage to stage to stage and be done with it for the day, and kind of have the second half of the day to chill out. There's more relaxing time. The con, or the thing I don't like about half-day format that I appreciate a little bit more about the full-day format, is I feel like you get a better, a more even mix of weather and range situations across the whole match.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so in other words, if you just happen to be on like an afternoon squad where the wind is just up like crazy, or it's rains like crazy in the afternoon, if you shot the second day afternoon, that's the only group that 1/4 of the match got hosed. Everyone else was fine, or that half or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, yeah, I kind of struggle with that. I like the half-day format myself because I do like to get all the stages done and then be able to do the decompress and not have that adrenaline dump every hour on the hour throughout the day.
Yeah, and I think it's easier for me to keep my energy up for like that solid like half the day. You technically have like an hour and a half or 2 hours in between stages, but I feel like I never go relaxed because I don't really want to get too sleepy, and there's not enough time to really get comfortable. So you're pretty much still just hanging out on the range in the heat or the wind or whatever's going on. Not necessarily comfortable, but not shooting either. So I guess I don't appreciate it, the full format quite as much myself.
Yeah, I find myself sleeping a lot between stages. Like, I'll just kind of sit on the tailgate and then I'll just fall asleep. And, I don't know if that points to like I'm not getting enough sleep ordinarily, or if that just is like my fight or flight is now over and I'm into hibernate. But I don't know what the deal is there. But I find myself sleepy when we do the full day thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people either sleep or just try to keep themselves a little bit busy. So I have a hard time sleeping in the middle of the day and taking naps, and I'd be worried that I'd kind of be too worn out and tired anyway, personally.
Yeah, no kidding. I've dealt with that too. I'm like, no, okay, I'm up and we got to shoot. What? I'm not ready.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Josh, we had you on the show just recently, and we talked about a lot of the prep work and how to overcome, your mental game by preparation. So I'm excited to get into the next part here because I know that you can help the audience out quite a bit. And if folks want to hear that, it's 3gunshow.com/episode 157. And going on to the rest of the Match Recon here, what was what's the match flavor of Blue Ridge?
In one word, I'd say physical. Very physical match. Lots and lots of movement. I didn't exactly measure everything, but I would say on average you traverse between 175 and maybe upwards of 300 yards a stage. So just physically either running while shooting, climbing over obstacles from position to position. So there's a lot of movement involved. The other flavor that was very evident is that the rifle, for the most part, other than just a couple of stages, was your last gun to employ. So and you always had something, for the most part, on your back. So you either had a rifle or a shotgun on your back, and you were usually ending with a rifle on some mid to long distance stages with your heart rate kind of pounding out of your chest.
Right. Yeah. So it is kind of funny now that we, that it's in the past year, but you have so much ground to cover, and then now you lie down or you take a knee or whatever, and then you're shooting, these really far rifle shots. It actually is like a very specific skill and obviously something you can practice for.
Yeah, it is. It's one that I'll admit that I still haven't quite mastered. I think I took a bit of a flawed strategy in this match personally, but it is really hard to maintain control and get control of your breathing and not let your heart rate kind of affect what you're seeing in your scope and how you execute that end stage of a match like that. I think it's the most challenging thing, in my opinion. I think it's the most challenging thing in the sport. It's still what I probably have the most room to improve on.
So when you said you took a flawed approach, can you fill us in on that and maybe some ideas you have for the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So I came into this with a lot of physical preparation. So I was doing a lot of running, a lot of work in the gym, a lot of supersets and things like that, trying to my thought process was be in as good a physical shape as I could be in, so that because typically the better shape you're in, the faster your body can recover. So you can elevate your heart rate, and then you're getting control of your heart rate and reduce it rather quickly if you're in good shape, and learn to kind of function as best as I can while my heart rate is high. I think where I made a mistake is that I drove physically into those rifle positions pretty much at full gas. So I didn't let up. I didn't even give my body a chance to kind of recover, thinking that I could get there and get control of my heart rate fast enough to still execute those shots. And that wasn't the case. I really needed to let off the gas, maybe give it like a 60% effort in that last section, execute some heavy, deep breaths before laying down and give my body a chance to settle a little bit, because all the time that I may have made up on that hard physical push to the rifle, I lost while on the clock, missing targets at distance.
Yeah. That it's a tough one because in your mind you've got the clock ticking. You're like, oh, if I just get to that spot, then I'll be lying prone and I'll be fine.
Yep, absolutely. And going prone on a platform with your heart beating so hard that it's moving the platform, you can just see it in your optic. You're bouncing like 3 to 5 mils around the target, trying to get things to settle, and it makes for a tough final shooting position for sure.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, well, so one of the things that comes with physicality is terrain that you have to traverse. So tell us about the terrain at this match.
Yeah, pretty much the whole match is in the woods. So you're either out in the field or you're in the woods, running through the woods, and not the most clean and clear paths. So lots of opportunity to trip and fall and stub your toe. I mean, we had a lot of people hit the ground and went down for sure. I know Daniel Jurassic, who took second in TAC Ops, he smashed his foot into a stump and I guess went down like a rock. Hit his toe so bad that he thought he broke it, went to the emergency room. I saw pictures of his toenail like torn off and laying next to his foot. Surgical sutures. So yeah, it looked pretty great. And he still shot a great match and shot anyway. He was walking like he had like a peg leg, which was kind of fun. But yeah, the terrain and the match itself definitely lends itself to some accidents in the woods, as you saw last year.
Yeah. For those just tuning in, I shot a third of Blue Ridge last year in 2016, and there was a 2011 magazine sized stump that was in the middle of one of the paths that I tripped on, hyperextended, did a full heels overhead, shotgun whacked me in the back of the head, lost eye pro, ear pro, all the good stuff.
Yeah. Another interesting aspect of the match too is just, I mean, if you've shot in the woods before with brown targets or not painted targets, just the shadows and the sun coming through and the visualization can be really tough. And on top of that, there was actually a couple of targets in the woods that were purposely painted brown. So that was...
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah. We had some pistol shots on stage 4 in the woods, and I didn't believe it myself, so I walked down there to make sure, and sure enough, they had brown spray paint on them.
Nice. That is horribly ruthless on the match director's side. So, last year I was saying, like, because I went directly from Three Gun Nation Nationals to this, right? And even in the rain, Three Gun Nation paints all the targets between squads. So at least you can see where all the targets are. And I remember walking around looking for gray targets, no brown ones at that time. and just be like, I don't think they put these extra 2 targets out on the stage. Like, I cannot see them. And then, sure enough, the next day during our walkthrough, one of my squad mates was like, no, they're right there. And I swear to God, I looked in that spot like 100 times.
I will give the match crew credit. All the long distance and middle distance targets did have yellow backers on them. So they may not have painted the steel, but you could at least see the yellow backer, so you could find them. That's
almost better because you can still see the backer.
I think it's fine. The backer's fine to me. If I have some type of indication, then I can find the target.
Very cool. Yeah. All right, so tell us about the skills utilized in the match.
Lots of slinging. So getting in and out of slings was definitely a part of the match. I think every stage you had something slung. I can't think of one time. There was one stage 1, where you did not have a sling on. Your guns were actually staged. I think that was the only one that I can recall. So I think some of the biggest skills again was a long distance rifle. There were about 10 or 12 slug shots in the match, but none of them were really that challenging. I was honestly anticipating some really tough slug shots, some really tough long pistol shots, and there wasn't really much of that, to be honest with you. I was expecting a little bit tougher presentations. Aside from that, there was some standard flying clays, lots of knockover shotgun stuff. There wasn't a ton of shotgun arrays either. For TAC optics, for example, you're limited to an 8-round tube. So one of the things that I had in my head going into this match is that, man, it's gonna be really tough, like 30, 40, 50 plus array shotgun stage. With an 8-round tube, but I'm used to being able to, dump 8 rounds in the gun at once. And if I've got 2 or 3 in there, it's not a big deal. With an 8-round tube, you're really limited, and you got to start thinking about what's happening before you're pretty much dropping 2 shells on the ground because you've reached capacity. That really didn't come up. Most of the arrays were like 3 to 5 targets, and then you moved a certain distance and loaded 4, and then shot 3 or 4, and moved a distance, loaded 4, and shot those 4 or 5, and you were done. So that didn't end up becoming something that was a factor, at least to me. It really made no difference to me in the way the stage was designed, whether I had an 8 or a 12-round tube in my shotgun from my assessment.
Well, that's actually pretty good. So in the last couple of years, we've seen shotgun arrays get super crazy high round counts because we're running, the larger tubes now, and we can quad load and it's faster. So it's interesting to see that the opposite effect, like catered to the 8-round tube that is in the rule set in the rule book.
I think the single largest shotgun array at one position was, I think it was 8 shots, and that was on stage 7 by the bathhouse. And it was six knockovers with a couple activators and 2 flying clays. So that was the largest single array at one point that I can recall again.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
All right, so there's other challenging obstacles: climbing walls, culverts, climbing down a rope.
Yep. We had to climb the climbing wall at the barn on stage 1, and then slide down the rope. I know some people were walking around with some bandages on their hands, so I think in the walkthrough people were being a little conservative, but I think when the buzzer went off, people were just flying down that thing. I think when I went off of it, I don't think I touched the rope. I think I ended up just jumping to the ground.
Nice. Yeah, there is a right and wrong way to do that, and hand over hand generally wins out over just sliding through your hands and then dealing with the burn for the next 3 days, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. And then let's see. I think another skill that I would call it would be shooting from a golf cart. So if you have
that's true. That's true. I've done it a couple of times now, so it doesn't kind of register as something that's special anyway. It's still fun, don't get me wrong, but it's not an abnormality anymore. But yeah, shooting from a golf cart on small targets that are being scored is super tough. So,
yeah,
that was not fun. I actually got to the end of that one, had just a wicked fast raw time, and I was super excited about it. And then the penalties started to add up. That was not fun.
Well, this is probably a good place to talk about that. So I guess a skill that you'd need is accuracy and calling your shots on paper, because generally we just squirt 2 bullets at a target and move on. But the scoring at Blue Ridge is a little bit different, right?
That's true. So Andy does points down. So your A hits, 2 A hits neutralize the target with no points down. Anything in the C zone gives you a half second. Anything in the D zone is 1.5 seconds, and a total miss is 5 seconds. Or one target on, one hit on, one hit off. One A zone hit and one no hit at all is 5 seconds. So they can definitely creep up on you. So handful of C's, no big deal. You throw a couple of D's in there, and it really starts to add up fast. So there was a lot of it was definitely a change in gear, and I don't know that I fully adjusted my mindset. I mean, I was definitely aiming more than I usually do, but I think I was aiming but then still shooting the same splits that I usually do. So if they were close, it was fine. If they weren't, then I was splashing in the C zone quite a bit.
Nice.
So that's different. I don't prefer it just because I think I'm just so wired to the other approach personally, but it's fun. It's definitely not enough to stop me from coming back for sure.
Yeah, I get the reason, right? They want to force accuracy, but
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough when the game is different everywhere,
Yeah, it is. And it definitely slows down the stages and the resetting too. So I think it adds that challenge as well, where you just that. And I think it also, I was watching a lot of the ROs just kind of like calling the targets from like 20 yards away. I was like, really? You can really see that was like 2 C's from 20 yards away and they're right on the line. So I think it also, there's a fair amount of just error in scoring when it's done that way as well.
Well, and that's the other thing that really bothers me about that type of scoring is, in USPSA, obviously each target is scored, in like a pistol match, but they don't paste anything until the scorekeeper and the shooter go around and see every target. So in a scenario like Blue Ridge where you have maybe 300 yards from the first position to the last position, or 200 or 100 or whatever it is, that's very difficult and time consuming, and it's not allowed, right? You can't request that all targets be left unpasted until I get there. So
exactly.
It's,
you don't have much of a ground to stand on when you come back after your shot and you're 300 yards down the trail and like, hey, that first target back there, only had 1 hit in the A zone and no hits anyplace else. And you're like, well, it was like 3 yards away. Are you sure? Are you sure that I only put 1 into it? And things like that. I mean, I heard a lot of stuff, like kind of stories about that, but I think it's just one of those things you accept. And also the length, I think it's kind of noise in the general scoring of things because the stages are just so long.
Right.
I mean, no like 2, 3, or even 5 seconds, in a target hit or not hit accumulated across 9 days. It's probably going to make a difference in your overall standings. I mean, they're just so long.
So then at that point, you got to ask, why do it?
It's a valid point. So I think that my personal opinion on the rule set, the points down scoring and the tube restriction just kind of seem a little bit irrelevant. But hey, it's Andy's match. He got 250 people to show up and pay money to shoot it, and we had a good time. So he probably is not compelled to change it. But if it were me, I would do something slightly different. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah. So I got to disagree with you on the shotgun thing because I do think it adds like a whole new flavor when you're trying to load either 2 or 4 into a shotgun with 8-round capacity. It's a little bit more different. It's a little bit different, and it's a more challenging stage plan, in my opinion, rather than just like, I got room here, so I'm going to stuff 4 in because I'm sure I have some room in there. I think it makes it like a completely different shotgun game. And I don't know if I'd want to shoot it all the time, but it definitely adds like a kind of a fun factor that you wouldn't see otherwise.
I think I would definitely agree with you if the target presentations and the arrays were more to what we see in our typical matches. But again, the way it was presented in this match, it was never an issue. It never made a difference in my mind as to whether it had an 8 or a 12-round tube, just because of the particular the arrays, how large the arrays were, and the spacing between them. I mean, there were some instances where, I was running 35 yards between shotgun arrays. It's like boom, boom, throw 4 shells in and run 30 yards, shoot 4 times, throw 4 rounds and run as I'm running 30 more yards. So it wasn't really that impactful. But I do agree with you. In other shotgun presentations, it certainly would have a different impact on your stage planning and how you would shoot the stage or the array.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes it. Did you guys do any mixed slug loads in there on any of the stages?
Yep.
Okay.
We had mixed loads that came up a couple of times. A couple of stages where we started with slugs. Another stage down in Dole Valley where the last shotgun array had 2 slugs in it mixed in. So yeah, it was definitely part of it.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that becomes a little bit difficult too because right off the bat you don't have that headroom to plan.
Yep. Correct.
In your tube. Yeah. All right. So what was the farthest shot and number of long range shots?
The farthest shot was, I think it was right at 500 yards. I'm sorry, right at 400 yards. I apologize. Was the farthest shot we took. I think that there were 12 to 13 targets that were kind of beyond the 300-yard mark. And then beyond 200, there was probably 16 to 18 targets, 200 plus. So, the thing about it is none of the long range in and of itself was really that challenging. What made it challenging was the physicality leading up to it. I don't think any of the targets were particularly small or challenging approaches, and none of the positions we had to shoot from I thought were necessarily challenging. Above and beyond what I've seen at like a Pro-Am or a 3-Gun Nation match or out in Texas or any place else I've shot. What made them challenging was the physical element leading to the shooting.
And I like that. I like the achievable distance targets, but then we're gonna screw with you beforehand or give you an uncoverable position or something, rather than you'll be calm and collected, but you're gonna shoot 800 yards.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of joking with some of the guys, like if we started right here and all you had to do was like drop to the ground in this nice prone position, because 2 of the 3 long distance stages you shot prone. You just from the buzzer drop down to this position and shot prone. I mean, for a lot of the top guys, they that are decent to great at long distance, they'd probably be like maybe 1 to 3 makeup shots because again they were very achievable. But you do it at the end after 90 to 120 seconds of running, they become a lot more challenging to hit.
That's for sure. Everything becomes challenging to hit at that point.
That's true. Yeah.
All right. So how were the logistics at the match?
Logistics weren't bad. The match book and the stage descriptions provided were a little off. It was a little challenging to kind of understand what the expectations were based off of the stage descriptions, and then some targets had been removed from the match that were in the match book. So when I arrived fairly late, but that was kind of the common theme I was hearing, is that it was really hard to understand what was going on, and the walkthrough the day before didn't bring a ton of value other than just kind of know that, hey, we're doing something here, and over here we're doing something else, and then lastly we're doing something here was kind of the gist of it. So that made it a little challenging. I heard from a couple of folks who was their first time at Rockcastle, a couple of guys I shot with on my squad. So they didn't know where they were going, and there was really no signs or indication of where stages were. We were provided a map, but I think even so, without knowing kind of the lay of the land, it was challenging to get around. So that was something that was communicated to me. I think pretty easy things to adjust as a match director, but if you knew the place, you knew the area, I don't think it was too bad.
Yeah. I've been
give it a C+.
I've been to Rockcastle, I want to say like 6 or 7 times now, and now when I look at the map, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
But the first time I went there and I looked at the map, I was like, I don't even know how to get here. Like, it doesn't look like there's a road that takes you here, So if you don't know that you need to go out to the highway and actually, leave the property and then come back on the property, that's sort of some tribal knowledge that I think, through in spite of the best efforts of people to put a match a map in their match book, it is lost on newbies.
Yeah, I think we take it for granted if we've been there a bunch, and it can be easily fixed with just a couple of signs down by the road, right? I mean, you come out to that major intersection and like stage 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 this way, and turn here for stage 6, and then 7, 8, 9 continue down here, turn right here into Thunder Valley. I think that would go along with the new folks, or even just putting banners at turnoffs. So at least you're heading somewhere toward a stage.
Yeah, for sure. Rockcastle Pro-Am and the Girl in a Gun Fall Fest did a really good job of that. They had awesome signage. So the pattern does exist.
Yeah. And logistically, I had left before the prize table was done. I had to get on the road, but I had heard there was a bit of a mix-up from being from outside where division winners and such were being called versus inside the Jesse James room where the prize tables were. I guess there was a lot of mixed signals going on in there, and some like incorrect things got pulled off the prize table. So a bit of a logistical thing that kind of broke down from what I understand. I think it was resolved, but I didn't get the full gist of it. But that's also something else that I heard on the logistical side of things. Again, not intending to bash Andy or the match, just some things that were brought up, but not a big deal.
Okay. And how about the venue? Tell us about Rockcastle, even though we've covered it a bunch of times in previous podcasts here.
Yeah, Rockcastle's fantastic. I mean, I think if you're this side of the Mississippi on the eastern seaboard, anywhere over here, it's got to be one of the top. It's got to be the top or one of the top shooting facilities, just because of the on-site lodging, the area itself, the terrain and everything that it offers, the food on site. I mean, it's got a lot of really good stuff to offer the shooting community. So it's one of my favorite places to go. I wish it was 3 or 4 hours closer.
Yeah, same here. I think it took me 18 hours to get there last time, but that was a little rough. But like you said, it's incredible. Like in Thunder Valley is what they call it, and that's what you have to leave the facility, get on the highway, and then you're back on the facility once you get there. It's absolutely freaking incredible. You can shoot out to 1,600 yards. I know they've got some precision areas set up there where they shut down the whole valley and shoot that distance. And there's tons of different places to shoot out to, like we said, 400, 450, 500 yards in a match environment. So you can run multiple stages in that valley. It's pretty incredible overall facility.
It's got to be one of the most iconic areas, shooting areas in the 3-gun sports. I mean, there's so much in the shooting sports in general. It's such a cool place to go, and so many big matches have been shot there over the years. It's a pretty neat place.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah, I love that. And the other venue I think of a lot is Peacemaker at FN. That valley they shoot down into is another one that's just beautiful.
Yeah, I haven't shot that one.
Yeah.
All right, so how was the pre-communication information about what to expect and other pertinent information?
It's pretty standard. Matchbook was sent out. There was a couple of regular emails. I would call that kind of the standard offering. It was nothing over and above, but to me, I think it was enough to at least get you on the right way. So provided an ammo count that I think was accurate enough, especially if you packed some contingency extra, which we always encourage. But yeah, I think the pre-communication was solid.
All right, and then how was the staff?
Staff for the most part was really good. I think Andy does a really good job putting on this match. I think there were 2 stages in particular that there seemed to be a common theme where there were some issues with the ROs, which that comes up from time to time, and hopefully it's something that the match director gets the right feedback on and can adjust. But overall, 2 out of 9 is not too bad from a stage perspective. But I think it was run pretty well. They had 3 ROs on every stage, so I think it was appropriately staffed. And I think logistically it went pretty well.
And I've seen a lot of posts from ROs this time around that said that they're more tired than they ever have been from working at Blue Ridge. Yeah,
I think that's a big consideration in some of the and some of the issues the ROs go through in a match like this, especially, is just the volume of ground they have to cover with every shooter is substantial. A couple of the stages, the ROs did their job from a golf cart just because they were covering so much ground.
Wow.
And I can see by the end of 3 days, it's really starting to wear on you, and people are getting tired and probably a little crabby.
Yeah, I'd be crabby by the end of that for sure.
Yeah, I was crabby shooting it.
All right, tell me about the fun factor.
Oh, it was a fun match. It doesn't quite resonate as high as something like Pro-Am with the sheer just volume of people and the party atmosphere. But one thing I think that Andy does a really nice job of, and that's on the last night, on Saturday night, nice dinner buffet for the entire match and support staff. They have kind of the stuff outside. It turns into a little bit of a kind of hangout, having some drinks, kind of a good time. So not Pro-Am's kind of to me is kind of the pinnacle of the kind of the nightlife, party life, super fun factor, everyone hanging out, having a good time. This is not that, but it's still a good time. So I think it's still a fun match.
Good. And yeah, it sounds like the stages themselves were fun as well.
Yeah, stages are great. I mean, there was always an opportunity for a laugh, whether you're, sliding down a culvert and come out like a bonehead, or you forget stuff. We had guys shoot like they're supposed to slide out of the culvert and grab the rifle and sling it and shoot this huge pistol circus array, and guys get all the way to the end of the pistol circus, be like, oh crap, forgot my rifle, run all the way back up the hill, grab the rifle, you're yelling as they're running across the road. So, I mean, you can't take a match like this, I think, too seriously. Otherwise, it'll drive you crazy because there's so much opportunity for things to go wrong. I mean, there's so much going on. You're having to do like all kinds of funky things with your gear to keep it to stay on you. And there's a huge opportunity for silly, fun stuff to happen. And you just got to be able to roll with it.
Nice. All right. So let's talk about that then. Funny things that happened at the match.
So I got a good one that kind of happened to me on one of the stages. I really wanted to, so your rifle, whenever it was slung, was completely empty. You couldn't insert a mag on an empty chamber, which is unfortunate because then if you got a large pistol array, you've got to carry a significant amount of ammo on your belt, which is a bummer.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to put a D60 in for this particular array. But it was after transitioning probably 250 yards down this steep hill and back up the other side of the hill before you finally charged your rifle and made it ready. So I wasn't quite sure that my D60 would stay in my rifle mag pouch as I'm running down this hill. So and I had a fully loaded D60, so about 5 or 6 shooters before it was my turn, as we were heading down the hill to paste, I put it in the back and then ran down the hill at full speed to see what would happen. I think I made it about 3 steps before it flew out, hit the ground, and then proceeded to have like a 223 rainbow of there were 3 rounds left in it by the time I picked it up. It was just really just ground, just spewing ammo all over the place, and 6 people sat there and helped me pick it up. I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to find a different way to do this.
Well, at least you didn't have to unload the mag.
Yeah, and I didn't. I ended up using it, but I put it up front so I could put my hand on it as I was running down the hill with my shotgun.
Oh, so awkward.
Yeah, I mean, you had to like do all this weird belt placement stuff to keep certain things on your belt. So, yeah, so that was interesting. I saw some pictures of and videos of guys like on the back of golf carts doing wheelies with the ROs driving them. So that looked fun. Dylan was always good for a laugh, so he was always taking silly, inappropriate pictures with him and his squad mates. So Dylan Easley, if you guys don't know him.
Well, good.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have fun at this match. I think for 80% of the people that show up to this match, it's about survival and having fun, and then you got the rest that are just like that are trying ultra hard and like out there to win it.
And let's talk about the most important thing, Josh.
What's that?
When should you leave for a match?
Well, first of all, you should probably look at the schedule. And when you print off the schedule, you should look at that little section at the top left when it has the day of when things are occurring, which I had that. But, yeah, so I thought it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday match. So I found out that it was, in fact, a Thursday, that rounds went downrange at 7:45 on Thursday morning. I found out about that at noon on Wednesday as I'm sitting here. So needless to say, I had a panic attack as I flew out the door like a crazy person, jumped in my car. Luckily, my car was packed, and then proceeded to fly down to Rockcastle at highly illegal speeds. I will confess. I think I averaged 82.5 miles an hour on the way down to attempt to get some type of a walkthrough. Because again, I'd never shot Blue Ridge before, and I was told that a walkthrough would be really important just because of all the hidden targets. So I was kind of panicking.
Right.
Turns out it was doable without. I was able to pick up enough stuff, and I had a good squad in front of me, so I was able to pick a couple people's minds before I even had to show up to shoot. So it ended up working out okay. I don't think it really cost me anything.
Oh man, that's funny. So I was laughing for the entire day after you told me that. That he left late because we had just had the discussion about preparation and everything.
Oh yeah, I was super prepared. Just on the hard stuff, not the easy stuff.
Well, it's funny too because you were so prepared. You had your car already packed a day before you were going to leave.
Yeah, it became quite fortuitous because it would have taken me another hour and a half to go home and pack all my stuff, and then I would have inevitably forgotten something.
Yeah, exactly.
Panic.
All right. So lesson learned. Look to see what days the match are, and all right. And so we had a couple pretty good injuries. You already talked about Daniel Jurassic, and I know Jeremy Young had a I don't know what you call it, a pistol malfunction.
I call it a hang fire out of battery detonation in his handgun. So it sounds like, from what I understand, I wasn't there, that he pulled the trigger on the round, hammer dropped, and the round didn't go off. He then put his hand over the top of his slide, and I think what I heard is that the round had gotten stuck, so he couldn't just rack it. So then he gripped the top of his slide and then went to kind of aggressively slam his hand in the back of his grip, which is kind of one way you can pop a stuck round out. Mm-hmm. And as that slide started to open partially, the round detonated. So it kind of blew up in his hand, is the main gist of it. And he ended up having I think there were brass fragments from the shell casing, the round casing embedded in his hand. So he'd have some little emergency room surgery to extract that stuff is, again, what I've heard. I've not spoken to Jeremy specifically, but that's what I heard happened.
Yeah, that's tough, man. I mean, that's your freaking hand. So,
yeah, And props. God. They gave him a reshoot, and he reshot it right afterwards.
Oh, you're kidding.
Kind of a bloody mess. And then I think it started to set in post-adrenaline how much it hurt and how bad it was, and he ended up going to the emergency room. So I heard that he reshot it like right afterward and continued on and wanted to continue on, but was more serious than I think he had anticipated.
What a badass. Well, I did see this morning a Facebook post checking in with Jeremy, and it looks like he's going to be going into surgery on Friday, get some shrapnel pulled out, but he's alive and kicking, which is good. So we wish him speedy recovery and the best. Yeah.
So I guess, absolutely. So lucky that it wasn't worse, but, glad that he's okay. And, stuff happens, but I tell people all the time, all in, with all these little things that happen, this is still a lot better choice than, a weekly pickup men's basketball game where knees and ankles are getting blown out every day.
Yeah, I come from, like, obstacle racing is what I did before I started shooting major matches, and, man, the amount of injuries in that far outweighs the one where we actually run and jump with guns, Yeah,
absolutely.
Especially, like, when it comes to rolled ankles. I'm surprised we don't see more rolled ankles out there, especially with the natural terrain matches we shoot.
That was my number one basketball injury. I was really good at it.
Yeah, my brother was too.
Oh man, terrible.
Yeah. All right. So anything you want to add to your match recon here, Josh?
Well, I mean, two things. I think that if you haven't done Blue Ridge and you're serious about 3-gun, I think you got to go and give it a try at least once. At least say you did it and experience it before you make an opinion. And the other saying that was going around quite a bit that I thought was really applicable is that Blue Ridge does what it wants to you, which I think is pretty funny. Kind of a good way to think about the match, which means you're there to kind of survive and get through it, and that you probably can't make it do what you want it to do. It's going to do what it wants with you.
I love it. That's a great way to end the show, and a fairly accurate assessment, I would say, of Blue Ridge.
I believe that's a trademark Adam Maxwell comment, but I can't confirm that.
Many of them are.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Josh, thanks for doing the match recon and keeping us in mind while you're shooting the match and making notes and everything, and all the audience and the listeners out there really appreciate it. So thank you for that, Josh.
For sure. Absolutely.
Hey, before you take off, be sure to check out the show notes at 3gunshow.com for links to things that we discussed in the podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Armalite, the original. Armalite rifles put the AR in AR-15. The rifles themselves come with 1 8 twist barrels, match barrels, 18-inch or 13.5-inch with a 15-inch or 12.5-inch handguard, Timney trigger, Luth AR stock, adjustable gas system, tunable comp, a patented tunable comp. This thing's ready to go right out of the box for a 3-gun with no additional modifications other than putting on a nice optic. I myself Use a Vortex Viper PST 1-6 when I'm shooting TAC Ops or their Spitfire when I'm shooting Limited. Check them out at armalite.com. A quick reminder that if you enjoyed this podcast, consider supporting the show on Patreon for as little as $5 per month. That's like 3 rounds of 9mm per episode. Patreon.com/3gunshow. That's Patreon.
If you are finished, unload, show clear.